Good evening, the world. Welcome to this amazing and exciting and impactful conversation of PWI, People Who Inspire. Today's episode is centered around engaging an AI specialist, one who I truly admire and respect, whose work has impacted, if not thousands of people and different nations spanning from Africa, Europe, and the USA, my dear friend Barrett Nash. He is an AI specialist, the co-founder of InfiniteUp, a company powering AI agent ecosystems. And of course, he's the pioneer behind the Safe Motors, OLPC Rwanda, and deep ties to Africa's digital transformation. He is a thought leader helping startups and governments adopt AI in emerging markets. Ladies and gentlemen, let the drum roll as we welcome my dear friend Barrett Nash to the PWI Conversation today on our sixth episode of People Who Inspire. Barrett, you are welcome.
Oh, well, thank you for the kind words, Emmanuel. And I'm not the drum roll type, but I am enjoying your energy. And yeah, thank you for the opportunity for speaking on this podcast. It is something that I'm sincerely trying to do to distribute the breakthroughs in artificial intelligence worldwide and, rapidly in Africa. And, having chances like this to speak are a wonderful opportunity. So I'm here for for making sure that we're informing people about not what was yesterday, but what is happening today in artificial intelligence and AI agents.
Wonderful, wonderful. Of course, today we are diving into one of the most talked about and most misunderstood topics of all time, AI. AI. But not just any AI, we are talking about AI agents, the building of the blocks of the future of work, business, and impact. So that is why we are more than excited to have one who specializes in it, who is an expert to, help us understand things better so we can be able to approach the future in a more exciting and more clear way. So today, Barrett, take us back. How did you journey in Africa's tech landscape begin? How did your journey begin? Right from the first time you landed in Africa and up to today. And what led you into the world of AI?
Oh wow. Well, to save time, I'll be succinct. But it could be like a 3,000 page book. All of us have a lot of lives living. But in a nutshell, I'm a Canadian. I was going to university when I was young, way back in 2007, 2008. I was a bit burned out at university in Canada, so I volunteered as a teacher in Ghana. So Ghana was the first country I visited in Africa, and it was like a transformative experience to me in many ways. One,
Mm,
I was becoming an adult for the first time, so I was independent and learning a lot. But then what I saw around me was things that you can only see by experiencing. And one was that in Canada, people are often kind of lethargic or not that ambitious or, kind of it's comfortable for the middle class. People just want their safe jobs and to go do that. And people aren't that ambitious or try that hard. With love to my Canadian brethren, you probably don't disagree. Or what I saw in Ghana and I've seen across most of sub-Saharan Africa is people are ambitious. They're hungry to win. They know that the world can offer them a lot and they want to get there. Then on the other side, what I saw was that institutions around them were not giving people the ability to become the best versions of themselves. Schools were inadequate with fairness. There's only $100 being budgeted per student per year in say the Congo, for example. And what I saw was this mixture of people who have ambition, who want to get ahead, who are willing to give it their all, and then not kind of being given the ladder of opportunity. So I went back to Canada after volunteering. I got involved in the startup scene in Canada. I was the first employee for a company making deep water dive computers for the best in the world. But I had this ricocheting in my head, something kind of this is something to get involved with. I was passionate about it. So I graduated university, and became a member of the core team of MIT Media Lab's One Laptop Per Child, which was distributing 240,000 educational laptops in Rwanda. My idea was that better education would, kind of solve this gap. And that was a fiasco, with respect to everybody who was involved with it. They're all aware that the One Laptop Per Child initiative was like ambitious. This is this $100 laptop if you've ever heard about it, but it was just like a nightmare. And it was a big example of like, well, like bureaucracy, elitism, like misplaced objectives. But what it left me with was realizing that, like, while education is the most important thing in the world, there's a lot of people who are getting away from it, and it's probably not the way to have like a fast impact. So I started my own startup. The first startup I did was out of Rwanda, also out of MIT, and it was mobile tablet-based internet cafes. But what do people run off of it, right? Email. Uh, we got the hardware working, but not what people would actually do with it. Then I started working with Carnegie Mellon University in Rwanda. But then my kind of big thing was I launched out of Rwanda Safe Motos, which is a safer Uber for motorcycle taxis. I'm sure many people who are listening to this like know like motorcycle taxis are like the key way to kind of get around in many places, and they're awesome. But you don't know if you're going to be on the back of like a 12-year-old who's like driving for the first time, and like you're at risk. So we launched this. We use a bunch of cool technology to track the drivers, and it was quite successful. We managed to expand into Kinshasa, the capital of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, but we were um, uh, growing too fast. We were doing 5,000 trips per day, and like this business model is lousy. The Uber business model is lousy, so we like couldn't keep it funded. So right before COVID, I had to kind of start my life over, and I realized like before I was building technology teams, but I was not technical. But I wanted to become technical, so I self-taught myself using visual software development because that's how my brain is wired. Became one of the best in the world at a platform called Adalo. Now I'm using Flutterflow, which is built off of Flutter and Dart and Google's backend typically, and I've got my own team. And we've been trying to build tools for small businesses in first Africa, but then realizing that like good technology is trans-borders. Now we're looking worldwide. It's more about clusters and personas than it is about a geographical border. And my team and we've raised a bit of VC for building apps that help small businesses, but we couldn't find something that works. It was just hard to find something that people loved and were willing to pay for. But then we were well positioned for when this AI stuff came out at the end of 2022, because we weren't just wanting to be users of it. We were using APIs, the things that connect different technology products together. So we could bring AI directly into our own apps. And since then, we've been on a tear where we built a platform called Doer Business. Doer Business, you can try it out. It's doer.infiniteup.dev. And it's a series of AI agents, business coaches, AI empowered tools, things that are run by AI, but you might not even know are run by AI, all with the focus of what does it take to enable small business owners anywhere in the world, from Accra to New York to Hong Kong, about how they can grow their business. And it's awesome. But it's created a lot of learnings around artificial intelligence and AI agents. And that's why I'm here today to make sure that some of the learnings we've had along this journey can be shared with a broader group.
Wonderful, wonderful. You have a whole wealth of experience, and I'm really impressed with, especially you have a great beginning, and of course, looking at a continental kind of difference, you were able to really adapt well with Africa. Maybe you can share some tips with those who are hesitant about visiting Africa later. All right, so the second question I have for you, you seem to have answered two of my questions already. I don't know how you do it, but you gave a wonderful summary of your what inspired you to, moving into the AI space. But the question I have for you has to do with a moment in your early work with the Safe Motors and OLPC you mentioned. Uh, I mean, a moment that kind of planted the seeds for what you do now at Infinite Up.
I'm the one that planted the seeds for what I'm doing now at InfiniteUp. Well, like I would say that at Safe Motos, so I feel like many people, I'm sure who are like part of your audience, are really into startups, right? But I feel like every couple of years there's like a new generation of startups. And like say like the original kind of like startups, well, like the ones that like kind of made its name big is like, Yahoo, Google, like things like this, like coming out of somebody's garage. And these businesses were really easy because you could just like literally like throw a server on and like you could kind of like scale infinitely with negligible difference in terms of unit economics. You're like selling like digital boxes, right? But then I feel like it was like all this like Uber, WeWorks, job tech stuff where I feel like almost like retrospectively, they might not be remembered as tech enabled startups. Rather, they're traditional companies that are using technology tools. So say something like Uber, right? If you go from 10 trips a day to a billion trips a day, obviously it's going to be different logistics. And that is something that I feel like actually kind of goes against what I believe in technology. Another example is that, like, say you build a great ride hailing system or on demand food delivery in Lagos, it doesn't necessarily make it any better in Accra or Sydney or Tokyo. So I've actually kind of like, I looked at this stuff and I was going, well, like, frankly, like it's too much work to like make these sort of companies happen. Like that's like, like backbreaking to try to like go figure out how I do like 100 million trips, a year in Kinshasa. And it doesn't seem to me to be about what technology should be about. So I read this amazing growth hackers guide on like the founding of WhatsApp. WhatsApp, what was worth like $11 billion or something when it got by Facebook. It was only 12 people and it was just doing something small amazingly well, and it could be transborder and infinitely scalable. And I think that's to me like what technology is about, like being transborder and infinitely scalable. No network effects, not needing anything else, just like, like a magic lamp that we're digitally printing. So I decided that if I'm doing another company again, well, I want to do a better business model than like following, like, I thought if I did Uber, I'd be good because they're so successful. And it's almost like, wait, like this was their plan the entire time? Like, are they a bit slow? Um, but now what I'm doing is like, $12 a month for our basic, $250 a month for our executive white glove treatment. Same prices everywhere in the world. You don't just pay by any card, and you don't need any ecosystem. You don't need any other users for the app to be valuable. You just go in, and for us, if it's 10 users or 10 billion users, it's the same. Though I'd be curious of how we have more than the population of Earth. But like, I think that's what technology should be about. Um, so that's how I got here, I guess.
Barrett, each time I listen to you speak, right from the Guinness World Record attempt by Tom Cruise for the longest interviewed marathon, where you spoke a lot on AI, I really do enjoy you talking about the future. Of course, you've lived and worked across different countries, but my question is very simple. How has it been? How has being in all these continents and countries really immersed your your view? Let me put it this way. Maybe let me restructure it because this is really an interesting question. You've lived and you've worked in across, let's say, different countries from Rwanda to Congo, to Canada to US. How has being immersed in the emerging global market kind of shaped your understanding of innovation? Because you're a very innovative person.
Well, I'm actually in Tbilisi, Georgia right now. So I'm currently bordered by Azerbaijan, Armenia, Turkey, the Black Sea, and Russia. Um, but I
Wow.
believe that, like Albert Einstein had this concept he called combinatorial creativity, which is like actually some great breakthroughs happen not by people who are in their sphere of expertise, but other by people who are outside of their sphere of expertise, kind of like experimenting because they're not blocked to the thinking around you. So, say, like, for an example, in Canada, nobody was using WhatsApp. Everybody was using SMS text messages. And I was always using WhatsApp in Africa. It was something that like I would never even thought of it because I'd not imagined it. But by seeing how superior it is, that suddenly I started using it. And now, like, say, like, I've got many people in Canada use it now, but it's like you can't go back once you see it. Another example is like motorcycle taxis, right? In Canada, you don't use motorcycle taxis. And like, I would have to wake up in the morning, go down to the bus stop, go like, wait for the bus, go get hopped off, dropped off, transfer the bus, move over, the bus is late, where like, whoa, like I could just like get a motorcycle and be like, take me wherever I want. And it's very affordable. I think that there's something for, like everywhere you go, keeping like your eyes kind of fresh for what are things that like work, really nice and really well that might be missing in some other place. And then it's almost like, like a lot of being an entrepreneur isn't even needing to like think of something fresh. It's more like what's something that like works really well somewhere else that just kind of hasn't arrived yet that we could do, or we could like leverage that type of thing. But I do believe also like, just being always kind of like outside of your bubble, like pushing your own personal boundaries. Like when stay in your neighborhood for your entire life, you're limited by the people around you. And like, say Emmanuel, like it's a wonderful thing talking to you. We come from, very different places, but like, it's a pleasure to talk. And I think like this is what knowledge sharing is about. And I feel like all day, a big thing though is having a task list. I keep like a task list on my phone because, actually like sometimes like the problem is not lack of inspiration, lack of creative spark, but rather there's always so many, but you just got to write it down and actually like do something with them.
Wonderful, wonderful. I think what we've just unraveled was just to understand your tech journey. So you seem to have a very rich and varied industry experience. So let's kind of demystify your what AI agent is really about, because a lot of our listeners are trying to understand what does it mean when we say AI agents, you know? Of course, our topic for today is who are AI agents and what do they really do? You understand? Um, so can you help us kind of let's get into what exactly AI agents all is all about, and how are they different from AI most people think about? You know?
Sure. Okay. So I think that something that everybody's aware of is that AI kind of wasn't expected. Well, generative artificial intelligence, like the one you experienced from like ChatGPT, it was more of like a discovery than a predicted breakthrough. This could have happened in 20 years or like 100 years. It happened quite suddenly. And the people who actually like put it out there, so like say like at the end of 2022, OpenAI released ChatGPT 3, and they didn't actually think it was going to be like a revolution. They saw it more like a tech demo. And they actually thought the real value was going to come from this API stuff, like the backend, like we're using it at Do Our Business. But they put out this like kind of chat interface, just was like, yeah, like a tech demo. And nobody was more surprised than them to see it take off. Now, this chat demo interface was like kind of like just a simplification, but it's got a lot of flaws to it. And I think everybody's copied it because like that's what others are doing. But when you're dealing with a chat, there's some downsides. One, it's expecting a lot from the user to take the lead. Two, it doesn't specialize. So I'm sure if you've used artificial intelligence, the more you talk with it, the more it kind of like loses the thread and stays less focused. And then three, it's a one-to-one relationship. So AI agents, what they are is really talking about the evolution of what is the user interface for interacting with artificial intelligence. And the idea is like actually coming from academia. Uh, and what's interesting is we're seeing like lots of different interpretations of the academia. So basically, like what an AI agent should be is like an AI helper, an AI assistant. And more than that, well, it was kind of academic, and now we're trying to make it practical. So let me say like one example of what an AI agent can be. Then I'm going to kind of talk a bit more deeply about, well, what does it actually like kind of look like from a practical level? So Google has been developing an AI agent that should be 100% autonomous, not needing the user in the loop. And then the user can be like over like swimming in the swimming pool or something. The AI will have access to your entire computer and it'll be like writing emails, checking on things. It'll be like working like the way you work. And that has been like the interpretation of what like a lot of people kind of see as AI agents. It's almost like, you know, your clone and it does your job for you. And this is like a fascinating idea, but I think that this isn't like kind of like actually like the future of what AI agents and how they assist human beings are really going to be. So what are the downsides with this approach? Well, one is a privacy. Who wants to give all that access to Google, right? Uh, but bigger technical challenges are it's kind of like unimaginative where it's still a one-to-one relationship. It's like, here's you, but it's like literally still something like typing emails. Like that seems uninspired where like, you could have like an entire like army working for you. Um, and then it seems like AI, when human beings are out of the loop, it becomes worse. This is like a known technical issue. Even for the most advanced AIs, it's like something like it decoheres. It has decoherence. So like an example is like, say you as a human being write the number 7 on a piece of paper, then you feed it to AI and you just bounce it between AIs, and it's clearly a 7. Over time, it becomes like blurry. And it doesn't just do this with images, it does this with thinking as well. Like, for example, if you try to tell AI to write a book, it'll like lose the plot, just become like this mumbo jumbo. So the approach I'm proposing for AI agents, and others are which is AI agents that integrate with human beings still in the loop, but they're designed to be more efficient and specialized and doing what I believe AI does best. Like if you're using AI, like my test if AI is being done well, is it should be easier slash faster than otherwise and of a higher quality. So let me describe to you like kind of the AI agents that we're building. And this is like an approach others are using, like Palantir is doing this as well, for example. And it's more about not AI as replacements of you, but rather AI in a symbiotic relationship as you, acting as extensions and enablers, but you're still like the general, right? So like it's still like, having you in the loop. So what we're doing is instead of having like a general conversation with one artificial intelligence or asking you to create the different ones, we create like an organizational chart like of a business. So it has like your COO, your social media, your operations, your legal, and each one is specialized. Then all of these guys, you don't even need to talk to them. Rather, you have one AI assistant. We call it your chief operating officer AI. And what it does is it interviews you, Emmanuel, like the business operator, every day.
Right.
It learns about like, what are your concerns? What's going on? Then it takes that report. It then creates an assessment of which sub AIs it needs and what it needs for them. It then, not you, so your COO AI now talks to all the sub AIs and it goes create a report assessment on all of these things that are concerning of the CEO. It writes this. The COO can review it, accept it or not accept it. And then the COO prepares something we call a daily briefing, which is like a newspaper for your business of all these articles written by the sub agents. And then you as the business owner, the human being, you start your day reading it like a newspaper while you're having your coffee. And each one is like kind of like, okay, your social media AI is telling you that it would be a good time to do something humorous involving America because everybody's doing that. You want to boost sales. Maybe it's like made in Ghana, made in West Africa, something like this. Like
Yeah.
approaches like this, and then it can start the bridge between you and the AI. So basically, we're not talking about a radical new technology, but rather the way we're dealing with AI right now. It's one to one chat like. Instead, what we're talking about is an organizational chart with many going down, but you as the human are like just the decision maker, and that you have an assistant AI that organizes the other AIs for you. Final point is we can also create additional tools for all these agents. We can build something called like functions for them. So, say for example, it can print a PDF, it can generate an email, it can do like an SMS blast. It can do basically whatever you want because it just is function. So, if you can write the function, it can do it. So, like, say for example, you might want to have a social media AI that is linked into your Instagram and your Facebook, where it'll send to the COO AI its proposed images for the day, which will then go to the CEO. You'll look at them, you'll say, I like it. It gets launched by the social media AI by its functions to your output to your social media account, or I don't like it. Do it again, and it'll do that, right? Um, so I mean, those are what AIs are in like a nutshell. AI agents.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, I mean, I almost asked you, but you ended up answering it because I wanted to ask the distinction. I mean, in the real world, was the real world power of multi-agent systems, right? And I would have loved to ask if you have an example of what's possible today and what wasn't possible even a year ago. But you have been able to, describe that, even applying AI to what you do at InfiniteUp. Also understanding some of your mission and vision, your long-term goals with what you're building. So the question now is, there is a lot of fear around AI taking jobs. I'm sure you've heard about that with Google driverless cars, with robots and AI powered devices that are taking over some jobs from communication to media and PR work. And AI literally doing everything for you. So some people don't need an office assistant any longer because AI can set up your meetings, write emails for you, do literally almost everything such people can do. So from a specialist perspective or an agent perspective, what's your take and how can AI's agent argument rather than replace humans' potential?
Wonderful question, Emmanuel. So I would say, first, I want to say that one of the things that's fascinating about artificial intelligence, at least productizing it, using it, commercializing it, is that it's a really accessible field to enter. So I feel like for anybody who's like worried about their job, like the solution is like get into AI. Because like say, like generative AI, it only existed as a field really for the first time in terms of using it, not developing it, but using it really just came out at the end of 2022. So like say like a lot of fields are gate kept by people who have like 20 years experience, MIT, Harvard, Stanford, when like really like this is like a new playing field. And what's really fascinating is that the whole generative artificial intelligence is based on something called like natural language, which is that it's like as we speak. So instead of like C dot dash slash whatever code, like I'm not a good coder. I've always been envious of people who've been able to have that ability. But actually good coders aren't being great at actually the natural language needed for artificial intelligence because you really like the more like that like chatty person is like suddenly have like a superstar skill. So people who are worried like really like join, don't fight back, but people should be worried. It's going to replace a lot of jobs. And I think what we're going to find is, so I'm not believing that it's going to replace. It's this symbiotic thing. So like it's still absolutely essential for human beings to be in the loop. And like say like this org chart I told you, it's even like a bit more complicated. So say like a normal org chart is CEO, CMO, COO, CTO. Well, where we're going to change is now everybody's going to have a digital twin. So you still need the real employee because like say, so now there'll be a digital twin CEO with a CEO, digital twin COO with a COO, digital twin CTO with a CTO, digital twin CMO with a CMO.
Uh,
And your
uh,
digital twin
Bro,
is going to, oh, go
Barrett,
ahead.
Barrett, I really love the digital twin. How does it work? Can you explain a little bit more?
Okay, so like, do you know how you have like a job role at a business? They'll basically be like tasks for the human and tasks for the digital twin. And it's almost like your
Oh,
left hand and your right hand.
right.
And what you're gonna have, so like say suddenly now, like, okay, so like say like now you have the CEO says we're starting a new social media campaign. It then goes to the CMO and the CMO digital twin, and there'll be like some tasks for it. So like, and the way they're divided, it's kind of off of specialty. So like say the CMO real one is going to go, you know what, my belief is let's do this as like, like a Valentine's Day campaign. Now the digital twin will go, that's a great idea. Here are 10 different campaign ideas, right? So then the CMO goes, I like two and I like six. I don't like the rest. Can we go deep dive into those? It will then deep dive into those, create like more materials. It goes, campaign two, it's a winner. Can you flesh it out and make a presentation for us to present together to the CEO and the CEO AI? So then you go and present it, and it's content made by the digital twin of the CMO with the under the oversight of the real CMO, brought to the CEO for permission. Then the CEO go, I like it, I don't like it. Let's see how it says I like it. Here's the all clear. You, the CMO, go, okay, well, let's launch it like this. You can make the strategy together, and then maybe the digital twin will actually release it for you. So like the example is like some things are not good for AI to do. If the task is to pick up and move a cup of coffee, it's not going to be able to do that, right? So basically, but what's interesting is like where many people would expect a human being to be in charge, I actually believe in putting the AI in charge first because the AI is better at knowing better at planning and knowing where it gets stuck. And also the AI almost does tasks instantly. So what you're going to see is like you're going to get like tasks made for the AI, then the AI is going to like do it like the length of time it takes to process, but then it's going to get something sent to the human being side of things, like like it needs this permission or to post this or stand up and do a circle. But and these digital twins are agents as well, but they're not agents then that are just subservient to one, the CEO. They're also like there's multiple human beings in the loop with them. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes, yes. I mean, I really love where the world is going to. There is a famous saying that it's either you innovate or you die. So there is a whole future that is centered around AI, and it's really
Well,
great.
and like jobs are changing. Sorry to finish your point too on like people worried about jobs. Like jobs are changing. So like say for example at like one of my past jobs, we had a blog writer. The blog writer was an early user to ChatGPT, and like she just used ChatGPT to write the blogs. She did a good job, but then it was kind of easy for her job to be replaced in redundancies because like she made her job kind of only take like, a few hours a week because she made it so efficient. I think what's going to happen is people have this fantasy of like, getting more time from their day, which is fair, but employers are still at a stage where they're expecting like, 40 hours a week or whatever from you. So like if you're making your job more efficient, then you need to like be taking on more responsibility, going deeper. Like if you were formerly a social media manager and you'd spend all week like drafting like, a single post, well, now that AI can do that in 30 seconds, maybe you need to be bringing a lot more value. And the hope, and this is where like a lot of AI productivity ideas come in, is that every person, not even every AI, every person becomes so much more productive with the usage of AI, then the whole business benefits. But if you're just going to do your same job as the level it was before, and just take the time for yourself to go into the swimming pool in the backyard, well, then your job probably is at risk because, say, that guy in the office next to you, he suddenly is able to and he's AI friendly, he can suddenly do the job of 100 people, which benefits the business, but you could do that too. So, like, and you know what? Like, you can ask AI, be like, yo, like, I got time now. What else can I do? What more can we do? But it's not about you sit in the swimming pool and you get paid while the AI does your work for you. It's more about AI is, like, uh, a new magic, and you need to be the person who's unleashing that on your job role.
Right. That's very important. So AI is here to help us make our work easier, and also gives us more room to innovate and, add more to our task and achieve more uh, our goals more efficiently and faster. So very important there. One of the things that always fascinates me when people talk about AI is that, especially young Africans, entrepreneurs and techpreneurs who are always dreaming and believing it is possible to use AI to revolutionize the way we educate young people, because I know you are very passionate about education as well. You spoke about that in the opening. So when you look at the African landmark or landscape in terms of education and how we are empowering young people, many schools are adopting STEM initiatives, that's science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And some are creating AI hub, some are creating STEM hub, and quite kind of empowering young people to consider STEM related careers in the future. And AI is most talk about in these conversations in schools, wherever you find young people gathered these days, they are talking about AI. And the question now is, why should young Africans and global youth care about AI agents, and what role can they play in this revolution?
Sure. So I think so like AI in education has been a controversial thing. I think it's mostly been talked about in terms of like students cheating, teachers being lazy, and well, not even lazy, but getting like the AI to grade for them. And like all of that, like I'm not going to touch because I think AI needs to be incorporated into curriculum effectively as a that's where the world's going. We're not going back to the Dewey Decimal System. Sorry, everybody. But like, that's gonna be kind of messy because, poor teachers, they just got over COVID and now they've got to like deal with another revolution, right? What I will talk about then is like say like how this works with like say creating increased job opportunities for young people. So I'll give you two kind of examples. One is like a BPO, another is like a training. So say from a call center perspective, many people are worried about jobs being eliminated because of AI, because AIs can talk just as good as most people, right? That's certainly where we're going. However, AI is better when humans are in the loop. Now, for many people in Africa, they often get discriminated against in doing call center work to, like, say, North America because they have an accent, right? Whether they're gung ho, want things to be succeeding. So like imagine this as the future of call centers. It's not you talking to the person; it's an AI talking. But on your side, you have a dashboard of the AI asking for like additional clarification, telling you how the conversation is going. Should it do this way or that way? Where you're almost like working as like the manager of the AI talking to that user. And maybe you're doing like 10 or 100 or 10,000 conversations at once. But now it's not about you being a one-to-one talking to someone. Each one talking to someone is an agent for you to talk to someone else, and it can be specialized. Say with ChatGPT 4.5, it's exceptional and multilingual. I have it trained on the Swahili from Nairobi, where it's a mixture of English. I've got it like, you can really have it be nuanced and specialized. While I can talk to you, the manager, and like, you're specialized. So you could be having like, like um, a Accra style. I forget, you're in Accra, aren't you?
Yes, yes,
Oh,
yes.
I Okay, just checking. So you could have like an Accra style accent talking to the AI about like selling like, like high quality air conditioners for a Chinese company to people in Florida in a Florida style American accent. And all your job as the manager is to make sure that you're like choosing your own adventure with the agent. You're supervising it. So that would be an example of how AI agents can accelerate and include people who are normally not able to do that sort of work. Another example is training. So like, like a key reason you don't want to hire someone is because it just takes too much work to train them. And, unfortunately with educational gaps, often people in the global south just like, haven't had the benefit of like kind of being immersed in certain programs that are kind of like taken for granted. Now, imagine you're doing a company that is like trying to sell air conditioners again, right? Okay, we want to have like say an engineer design the next version, and we'd like to hire someone more globally. Well, like I'm sure you know Duolingo, right? So now like imagine like a Duolingo shell, but you can pre-train AIs on everything. It's just gonna be like a PDF. So you give it like a PDF of like everything imaginable it needs to know about engineering, air conditioners, and you tell the AI to only let the applicant talk to you after they've gotten a 90% plus, and then the AI will, you could do it just in text, or you could like create like a Duolingo style gamified shell. But instead of it teaching you Duolingo, it'll teach you whatever it is that that PDF upload could be for any business. So now there's a bespoke, customized at the level of the learner platform for learning that specific business, and that business gets to have a aggregator on quality that they define themselves so that they're only paired with people once they've hit a certain threshold. So it's better for both sides. Now, you want to prepare for that job, you just practice your Duolingo for air conditioning setups, which takes 10 seconds for well, 10 minutes for the air conditioner to set up off of a shell wrapper. And then you as the business, you're not having a bunch of people wasting your time because you know that they, you know, already know your business to a high threshold. You're muted.
All right, right, right. Thank you very much, Nat. Nash, this is really an eye-opening, or an eye-opener in many ways. But you know what I'm really curious about? You have a lot of experience, but I think the question has to do with where are we seeing the biggest gaps or opportunities in how African government, because of course you work with the some African governments from Rwanda to Morocco, Congo, correct, and a few other countries as well, and institutions. So how do you see them embracing AI? What are the biggest gaps or opportunities in how the African governments and institutions are embracing AI?
Well, I think that a lot of the like exciting stuff for the last 2 years from like a government perspective is like everybody wants to make their own large language model. And I think that's
That's
kind of a
right.
waste of time. It's like Pepsi to Pepsi to Pepsi to Coke to Pepsi. It's expensive, and like say us, we use OpenAI APIs because like they've gotten extremely cheap for ones that are like equivalent to these Chinese ones,
Mm.
which are also excellent. But they also have like they stay at the cutting edge, and it's very easy to change between them. But like say if I was to like, be well, any country, I don't think I'd be able, I'm a Canadian. I'd love Canada to like go make like Canada LLM and like not be reliant on, American ones. Canada's trying to be independent right now, but I don't think we could do it because training well is really hard. Now you could take like a llama or something. You can get pretty close, but like I think like, who wants to be two steps behind, even if it's not that hard to get two steps behind when it's better to like the way I think of AI right now is like it's like the browser wars of the early 90s where it was like everybody there was like Netscape versus Internet Explorer, and it was like really like this big war. But then it wasn't even that important because it's really about what websites were built on top of it, right? And now browsers aren't that valuable a thing. Like say Netscape was like the biggest IPO of like all time when it came out. And I think it's gonna be similar where like everybody's like, like the browsers are like the large language models, and like everybody's like, oh, gotta have one, gotta have one, gotta have one. When really it's about what do you do with that? And they're kind of like getting good enough where it's kind of apples to oranges. Like I often pass data between Anthropic's Claude, ChatGPT, different models, Mistral, DeepSeek, V1 and R1. Gemini, just kind of like, mess around with them, train them, have fun with it. It's like an activity. And they're like, no, that's different, right? So I wouldn't focus for governments on creating their own. Rather, I'd be like focusing on probably like the accelerator ecosystem of startups that can like build something useful. What's cool is that it used to be like, say like YouTube, YouTube's like a nightmare. It uses so much bandwidth, right? But like say for people who are bandwidth conscious, like, people should be aware that like AI uses very little bandwidth because at the end of the day, like all the hard work happens on servers, um, in the cloud, and all you get is text, right? So like,
Right.
it's something that can be very useful for people with low internet or like bad internet or trying to have like affordable internet. And then I think that like, well, people should start to be trained on how to make good use of AI. So one of the things I'm noticing is a lot of people are just like trying to be using the AI to do their job for them as like easily as possible. So like, hey, AI, make like a blog post on like, like the history of Ghana, and it'll do a good job, right? But like, where things are going to get really good is not where you are like having the AI do the job, but rather you're more entwined together, right? So like, you can go,
Right.
hey, AI, I want to do a article on the history of Ghana. What questions would you ask me? And it'll give you a list of questions like context, what are you trying to do? Then you can feed it to it, it'll come back. But I think like the key things are that if some people are trying to pass off their critical thinking to AI. But then, like, really, why do you need the human in the boat at all? And the AI is going to give a lousy job, right? So
Right.
rather, it's like, people need to actually be smarter than ever before. They need to be having their top level critical thinking. They need to be elastic in ability to think differently, so that they're not just like letting the AI kind of like just like regurgitate, but they're like pushing it somewhere. Um, I think that the skill for what it takes to build AI too is extraordinarily easy. So there's no reason, like, this is a better opportunity than any time for all these ambitious African entrepreneurs to actually go out, not just make something that affects their local ecosystem, but something that's like trans-border in its ambition. Um, like in the stack we use, Flutterflow based, like you can like literally just like take your API key to Claude, Gemini, or OpenAI, throw it in, and you suddenly just have like, agents you can put into your app. The challenge, I think, with AI right now, from a commercialization and productization perspective, is that we haven't done a good job of translating this technology breakthrough into products users love. More people I feel talk about artificial intelligence than use artificial intelligence. And many of the ways it's being used is just like casual ChatGPT for like fast work or homework or blogs or whatever, right? And it can do a lot more than that. So we just need to actually think of like what. And from a technology level, it's kind of like early days of the internet. It's like Twitter. Like if you know how to build tech, you can make like Twitter in 20 minutes, but the idea is kind of done already. What we're at right now is that there's all these like giant big companies that were pre-AI, and everybody's trying to be in AI. So just everybody's like throwing AI buttons everywhere, but it's kind of mindless and thoughtless. Um, or it's like these big companies who are just like trying to like do all they can. But like this is where it's a good time for like nimble entrepreneurial people to like see that idea of maybe something they saw work somewhere else or something on the news. Like say this example I just gave you of this um, AI wrapper for teaching for different businesses, right? I could build that. My team could build it, but as far as I'm aware, it's not been built yet. So like, people could go build that and go sell it to companies for training. And all they need from the companies is like a PDF on what they need to be trained. And they could, bring value to the company, value to the end users, make money for themselves. Not to say it's such a great idea, more that there's so many ideas like that. But I feel like where often Africa has been playing catch up, like how do we bring like, like Uber to Africa, Amazon to Africa, when there's already Uber, there's already Amazon, and maybe those aren't even the business models that are needed. But now, like people anywhere in the world, again, I'm in Tbilisi, Georgia right now. I run a Canadian company, and I'm releasing AI tools for small businesses worldwide. It doesn't make a difference if you can make the product, and you might be able to make the product in like 30 minutes, and it could be something that brings value. People haven't created the design languages, the type of interactions, the business models that are going to be the ones that like fully unlock artificial intelligence. And I think people are often used to like looking at like, what does America do? But these guys are flat-footed. Take a look at a lot of the AI products coming out, right? They're not intuitive. They're not friendly, right?
Wonderful, wonderful. Um, I think you should end up speaking at TED Talk and all of that because you have a lot of nuggets of wisdom to share. I don't know, have you considered such an opportunity?
I have a TEDx called Failure as an Essential Input Towards Success. So yeah, I should probably do an updated one on a more positive topic. But like
Let me
to your
shock you.
point
I've
before, like
actually listened to
we
it.
learn from. Oh
Well
yeah,
done.
please.
Well done. It was great. I was just pulling your legs. But you did great. I listened to
Oh,
all your views on a lot of things, and also your tips for young people who are also considering getting into the space. But you know what's really interesting is you are advising governments, governments, and startups and innovators. But the question is, what is the one key shift, that you think leaders really need to make to future proof their systems? Because of course, like you mentioned, they are commercializing it. Some you've advised that they build their own systems. They are able to build their own structure for their countries and all of that. But what is the key shift that you think leaders need to make to future proof their systems to ensure that first of all it is tested, it is trusted, it is strong, and all of that? What are some of the proofs?
well, from a government level, like it's good to like not reinvent the wheel, but for sure, it's like good to be able to like get a Llama 4 server running on your in your country with access to enough electricity so that if America decides to cut off the rest of the world from its AIs, that you have like a backup that's 95% of the way there. But I think that like where we're kind of going, it's so there's this concept of something called a paradigm shift. It comes
Mm,
from like science, where say like when people used to think that the Earth was the center of the solar system, they couldn't imagine anything different. But then it turns out the sun is the center of the solar system, and it changes all the math, all the logic of all how things are. And on the pathway to that, usually things go through a period of like crisis, where things that are normally normal suddenly don't work, and there's new normals. Now, I think that what governments need to kind of realize is we're in this change, this paradigm shift, and that it's a time of chaos. We don't know what's going to happen yet. And it's kind of like, like taking a boat, across and going like, we need to get to the other side. And we can see there's a storm along the way. So we can't predict necessarily what we're going to get on the other side, but we know that we got to go through the storm. And what I'd say then is like what people need to be trained on at every level, from the youngest school child to the most senior level of government, is it is a time to not take things for granted, to be having taking critical thinking seriously, um, and to feel empowered to be a pioneer and a leader where it's a flat playing field. It's an era of 0 days. And uh, I think that if anybody has like a vision of the future, it's never been easier to try to go towards it. But don't be dumb. Try to be your smartest right now, highest critical thinking. And I think it's an era of where people are serious in being leaders and doing novel things, then
mm,
it's possible. And at an individual level, this is just about having critical thinking and taking the steps to go learn doing things with AI. Don't be afraid. Don't just read about it, experience it. And from governments, I think, maybe some guys are tired of the entrepreneurship stuff the last couple of years, startups, 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 startups. But maybe they should actually, instead of being disillusioned by the lack of exits and lack of things they've
Mhm.
done, I believe that same ecosystem in Africa of like, 10,000, startups of, a couple people, well, that same could be like an incredible opportunity because those teams are well positioned to be making new artificial intelligence breakthroughs. And they're not going to be like rocket science. It's going to be like, like make an AI that like, tells me what my cat is thinking, and that'll be the product. And the entire instructions will be listen to my cat, tell me what it's thinking, $1 billion.
Well, of course, if you just joined us, this is the PWI conversation that is centered around what AI specialists actually do or what AI agents actually do. And of course, thinking about the future, which starts today, the future is now. But the question is, are you ready? And my guest today is a seasoned specialist who is the co-founder of InfiniteUp, a company powering AI agent ecosystems across the globe. And he also is the pioneer behind the Safe Motors, OLPC Rwanda, and deep ties to Africa's digital transformation. He's a thought leader helping startups and governments adopt AI in emerging markets. My guest once again is Barrett Nash, who is joining us from Georgia, USA. This has been the PWI Convo, and we have had the opportunity to really talk about Barrett's tech journey, which he shared with us from moving from USA to Africa and at a very young age. And he has made so much impact, which is still being felt today. And of course, we also demystify what AI agents really is about. And also, he was able to share some personal experience on how he's applying this at Infinite Up, including sharing his mission and his vision, which you really, really want to know because he has a big, big vision for the future of AI. Now, of course, we are talking about the future, and we said the future is now. So I asked Barrett a very important question. What should young African and global youths care about AI agents? And what role can they play in this revolution? I also realized that, of course, he has worked with so many government officials, so many institutions, so many startups, so many young entrepreneurs and techpreneurs. And I asked him about his advice on building the right systems and putting the right structures in place to ensure sustainability and reliability whilst they also grow their economy. So he has shared a lot of tips. And so if you just joined, you just have to take a moment, finish first, and then go back and watch what you've missed. So, welcome and have a great time listening to my guest, Barrett Nash. Let's continue the conversation. And what we're going to be diving deeper into is leadership in the age of AI. How do we connect with purpose, ethics, and leadership, which is very important. There is so many things happening with AI. How can people still remain authentic? How can people be real? How can people really still be the real them whilst they are navigating the space of artificial intelligence? So my first question in this new segment has to do with what kind of leaders will succeed in the age of AI? Barrett, this is for you. What mindset and skills do we need to thrive in this new era?
Okay. So like I feel like well, like similar to what I was saying in this point before, we're going through a period of shift, and it's hard to predict what the shift is going to look like at the end. So it's not a time where I think it's great to predict what the end will be like, but rather we can make ourselves best in the moment. And in the moment, what we can be facilitating at a societal level and at an individual level is high amounts of critical thinking, and also like uh, being able to become the best communicators we can. One of the things that's kind of surprising about artificial intelligence is its primary input is natural language. So, like, say, like coding, its primary input is code, machine languages, where natural language, all that means is like language that is natural as you say it. So, if you speak it, then it's natural language. Um, And that's like how AI communicates. So like AI would prefer you to say like, like, hey, what's the capital of Tajikistan? Rather than like, to code it as a query. Um, but I think anybody who has good critical thinking and who is comfortable in natural language, well, then AI and AI agents are going to be your assistant because, they're there to help and they just need you to be the partner with them. I also feel like, and this is like a controversial thing, but we're probably going to want to give the AI more input in terms of leadership in the relationships with humans. Where so when you right now go to ChatGPT for the first time, it's just like an empty box, ask anything. And I think of this like Aladdin and the magic lamp, which is like, okay, I can ask it for anything. What do I ask it? Right. And usually in these type of things, you don't ask it the best things because you don't even know what it can do and what it cannot do. You don't know what its capabilities are. Or AI itself, it knows it very well what it can do and what it cannot do. So I feel like instead of like, us leading the AI, it's actually more like putting the AI in charge, because then it's going to be more efficient. And basically, like our job is to make sure the AI is informed of our goals, what we're trying to achieve, but then following its structure and letting it like give the structure, and then we fit into the structure. So, for example, like say instead of go write a blog post on like like the supply chain of vanilla, it can be, I'd like to write an article on the supply chain of vanilla. What questions would you have for me to create an excellent article on this? And then it will create a list of questions instead of the blog post. Then you can answer the questions and you will see that will be a greater blog post or article than if you just asked. By the way, Emmanuel, just want to give you the heads up that I probably should get going in like the next 10 or 15 minutes.
Okay. Our time, we've done 1 hour, right? You're gonna go into another meeting?
Yeah, we've done I can go like I don't have another hard meeting, but I've got to do other things today. So like
All
I'm
right,
happy to go
right,
for a
right, right,
while, but I
right.
feel like, we've already been talking for an hour. Like who wants to listen to me for an hour anyways, right? Like 2 hours, that's like
Okay,
torture.
okay, okay. All right. So I think we should quickly wrap up. We've done a great time. We've had a great time discussing and
I feel
chatting.
like you actually already did wrap up really perfectly on like that in between bridge thing. Like that
Yes,
bridge was like a wrap up, I feel. Like I think that was like
yes,
exceptional.
yes, yes.
So happy to keep
So
talking if you want, but like I think like
yeah,
hmm?
so we're just going to do a closing rapid round. So this is actually
Okay.
our quick fire questions. So you either respond with one answer, just make it very quick in few seconds, and then that's how we're going to do it. So if you were to recommend one book every future focused innovator must read, what would it be?
I will say three because I think they're connected. I would read Dostoevsky's The Brothers Karamazov for its understanding of like psychology. I would do Thomas Pynchon's Gravity's Rainbow for its like wildness and language. It's gonna expand your language. And then I personally like download illegally The Economist every week. And I feel
Okay.
like if people read most of it, they're gonna like stay like of what's going on and relevant. So yeah, I would say those three.
Okay, so the another question is very simple. Top three skills young people should master for the AI age today. Your top most recommended skills that young
Critical
people must master.
critical thinking and natural language. Critical thinking, you can learn. Well, how do you learn critical thinking? That's a hard one, right? Critical thinking you learn by basically anything that challenges you. So, like, find things that challenge you and be engaged in your thinking. Don't just be passive. You know, uh, then natural language, like, well, that's kind of for you. But like, these are the things you need to
Mm.
realize that you're your greatest asset, and you're going to be your greatest asset by being able to think the strongest and communicate that the most effectively. So like sometimes people are like looking for like the hacks. Here you don't need to like go do like an extension of like 1,000 like different certificates, because like ultimately you want to train an AI. You can train an AI in 30 seconds. You just put in the words, it'll follow that. But what the training is, that's the difference between what is frankly differentiating a lot of AIs. And what the thing is going to be is it's going to ask you, like, what is it you're trying to do? And you need to, like, like deep think in your brain, right? And have that capacity and do it mindfully. And then you need to articulate it to the AI, where you need to be able to type it in a way that as efficiently as possible expresses these deep thoughts you have of what you're trying to get it to do, right?
Wow, nice, nice, nice. So, in final wrap up, what's your message to someone who thinks AI is too complex or not for them?
I think that it's easy to be frustrated by the rapid rate of technology change in the world, and that often the time we're most hesitant against something is before we've given it a real chance. And I feel like a lot of the criticisms I see around AI are people who expect it to work like a calculator. So they can go like, look, I got it to do this thing wrong, so all AI is bad, when AI is a symbiotic tool for us, not a replacement. We're still much needed in the book. And rather than looking at things where AI fails as an example of AI being bad, rather seeing why human beings are still necessary. And if you just give it a shot, what you should, most people who give it a shot will have like a moment they really often compare it to magic. And I feel like you're onto this when something that before that might have taken you 100 hours to do, you do in 5 minutes and it's better. So, like, if you're using AI properly, it should be a higher quality end product in less time it takes for you to make it. So, if that's not the experience you're getting, maybe you're using it a bit wrong. And the question you can do is you can go to ChatGPT free version and be like, I don't think I'm getting the full value out of AI. Here's my experience. Can you give me some guidance? And it'll help.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much, Barrett Nash, for taking your time to engage our audience today on the subject what AI agents really are. The future is now. That is what we've been discussing. And the future, which is very exciting, starting here from Africa and all through to the rest of the world. So we had a great time talking. And of course, let me just give a quick recap. I'll take away. The very first thing is AI agents are real. AI agents are real, practical, and here to stay. They are here to stay. And of course, Barrett is one of them. And we want to officially again thank Barrett for taking his time to be with us and sharing powerful insight and help us to dive deeper into the subject of AI, which is one of the things that excites the young people of Africa. And of course, in many places, everybody is glued to artificial intelligence, making the best use of it and also growing as it's kind of impact our communities. And of course, I also would love to take a moment to thank everyone who made time to join us. I would love to really encourage you to stay connected with us and stay interactive. Follow us on Instagram at people who inspire underscore global. And of course, subscribe to our YouTube channel, share this conversation wide. And Barrett, how can our audience get to connect with you? How can they interact with you, get to know more about the things you do?
Sure, like probably the easiest would be to go to my website, infiniteup.dev, or to follow me on Twitter. I'm Barrett underscore Nash. And I'm approachable. I love talking about things. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out. Good ideas come from anywhere. And I believe that we are in the early days of AI. So like, it's not a time of, it's a time of knowledge sharing. And I think the more effective we do for knowledge sharing, the better.
Wonderful. So the future is not waiting for us. It is here, it's learning, and it's being shaped by people like you. So step up, engage, lead, and have a wonderful, wonderful evening. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Thank you for this opportunity, Emmanuel. It's been a pleasure.